Hi, and welcome to this podcast, which is going to be about the amazing Elon Musk. You can hear this as a podcast, you can see it as a video on YouTube, and you can also read the article on the website www.astrowow.com, where you can get a whole lot of other stuff. So let's get started and see what's going on with Elon Musk. So here's the man, Elon Musk, the man who fell to Earth. Because he doesn't seem like he comes from this planet, and some people actually think he maybe doesn't. And he's really done some amazing things. Like before Musk came along, electric cars were like little golf trolleys, they were really boring. When he started with Tesla, he converted a English sports car actually into an electrified model and sold it as the Tesla Roadster. Completely transformed, then bringing new Tesla models. Everybody has to go over to electric cars. There's nobody in 5 years' time that's going to buy any car that's not electric, so it's going to change everything. It's going to change everything because the whole charging system, the whole electricity system in the world is going to change. People's batteries are going to be, car batteries are going to be connected to their houses. Everybody's going to be sharing their current. That's probably going to decentralize the electric grid. And through Elon Musk has even made like solar roofs tiles. If everybody had a solar roof, nobody would have to generate electricity in a centralized way. So he's really, and he knows that, he's really started with that. And he's not only made electric cars, he tried to automate them. It's not quite totally succeeded, but he thinks that all cars are going to be like completely automatic. You're just going to say, take me to here, and it'll drive you there. And I'll show you a little video in a minute about what that looks like. And then he's done lots of other things. He's made a tunnel company called the Boring Company, which is supposed to transport cars at hyperspeed underground. He's developed a robot called the Optimus robot, which actually learns as it does things through AI. There are other robots around that people have developed, but none of them learns like this one. I'll show you a video of that. He's created this kind of interface between the brain signals and in an outer interface. So he implants a device in the brain and then it communicates with the computer. So theoretically, anybody can know everything at any time. Kind of creepy, right? It was also he's developed rocket systems which send satellites, lots of miniature satellites up into low space, so that worldwide anybody can connect to the internet, which has been incredibly helpful in Ukraine, where Russia has kind of sabotaged their existing system, but they still can use the Starlink system. So this is an example of the self-driving car. Yeah, so you don't have to take your driving test maybe in the future. This is the robot. It can think on the run. And this is an example of the Neuralink thing, and there's a monkey, right? And the monkey is telepathically, it's not touching the keyboard or anything, it's telepathically writing with Elon Musk commenting. So it's not using a keyboard, it's telepathic typing. Which, is, a little creepy. But his baby, his huge baby, the thing he wants most, the thing he dreams of, the big thing in his life, it's the Starship, like a space technology that can take humans into space. And he envisages landing on Mars within a few years and taking like 100 people in a massive spaceship. So that's his contribution, to the world. It's a bit amazing, and you might expect him to be a kind of, I don't know, unpleasant personality, but I don't think he is. He's actually quite sensitive. He's when I think one of the astronauts said that they really didn't think that a commercial space company was the way to go. It really upset Musk. I actually saw him get tears in his eyes as he saw his efforts being rejected by his heroes. These people, these astronauts, were his heroes when he was young. So he plans to die on Mars. This is his horoscope, and he said that he's going to get to Mars. He wants humanity to be an interplanetary civilization, and he's going to pioneer this and go to Mars. So if he wants to go to Mars, we have to look at Mars in his horoscope. So Mars is actually in Aquarius. Very appropriate. It's on the 8th house cusp, kind of edgy, and it's in conjunction with the north node of the moon in Aquarius. That's a bit like kind of symbolizing humanity, isn't it? So he wants to take humanity to Mars. Mars in this horoscope is kind of interesting. It's trine Venus. That's another story. We'll talk about that later. It's exactly sesqui-square the sun. It's exact. It's within 1 minute of arc. So it might not seem like a strong aspect, but it is, and it's what creates a hypertension in his life. It also represents something of his father. So it's very high stress level that creates. So the interesting thing about Mars, which is really fantastic, is that when he's 12, by progression, Mars goes stationary retrograde. So it starts, for the rest of his life, Mars is going backwards. It's going, it reaches about 21, 22 degrees Aquarius, then it just starts going backwards. And it will never go stationary direct by progression, unless he lives to a very old age. So as it does that, it catches up with the north node. So you can sort of see this, the idea of taking humanity to space, is kind of symbolized by that. But wouldn't it be great if Mars actually retrograded more and more until it reached 9 degrees Aquarius? Because then, as you can see here, Aquarius is at 9 Libra, Uranus is at 9 Libra, Mars 20. If it went back to 9 Aquarius and trine Uranus, then we can see him landing on Mars, I think. That's like interplanetary space travel. In actual fact, it doesn't. It goes direct at 11 or 12 degrees Aquarius. But what happens, in fact, is that Uranus goes direct a little bit, so that Mars does try and progress Uranus. And that spans a period from his 60s to his 80s. So I think that's when he'll definitely go to Mars. I'm pretty sure about that. And I kind of mapped it out on this progressions map. I hope it doesn't intimidate you, but it's what the horizontal lines on this show a degree position of a planet. So Saturn's at 1 degree Gemini, Moon's at 8 Virgo, etc., etc. And I've put Uranus at 9 degrees Libra, and these dynamic curves show Mars and other planets moving, and you can see Mars. It sort of goes, when it starts going in this direction, it's going retrograde. So it goes retrograde, and it goes stationary direct in the 2040s. But because Uranus has progressed, you can see that progressed Uranus has gone from 9 to 12 degrees. Then Mars and Uranus progressed are in trine for this long period. So this is like the Mars mission. This is where he gets to Mars, and this is where he dies on Mars. That's what I'm thinking, because he got Mars on the 8th house. There's a lot of other interesting things here. You can see, for example, that Mars retrograde trine Venus exactly in the early 2000s. That's when he married, had kids, got the tremendous amount of money from the sale of PayPal and that kind of thing. So that's really interesting. And of course, another interesting thing is what happens with Mercury, which also goes retrograde in the mid 2010 to 20. And that's a bit of another story, but the Mars progressed. That's what I kind of wanted to show them in the sense of his desire to reach Mars. So there's no doubt that Elon Musk is a bit of a weird guy. He started programming before the age of 10, I think, and he actually sold a first computer game when he was about 13. And he was unusual as a child. He kind of spaced out, for minutes at a time, kind of, nobody could kind of reach him. And he still does that, and people kind of call it batch processing, because he's kind of tuning in, or tuning out and tuning in to kind of very complex calculations in his brain, I guess. So when he manages to get workers together, they either believe in him or they don't. And if they believe in him, he really works them hard. He thinks that like 100 highly motivated individuals are going to be more effective than 1,000 even skilled workers. So he pushes everyone to the limit, and he pushes himself to the limit. So he'll sleep at work. He'll sleep under the desk, on the roof, in a camp bed. When he has these surges, where he forces everybody to work at insane levels to do impossible things, and he does that, and his kind of attitude is, either you're with me on this, or I'll accept your resignation. That's his kind of standard view, and he's rude. He's just pretty. He's maybe not rude, but he's very direct, and it's because he's got Asperger's, which is a kind of variation of autism, and he thinks he's got Asperger's, and I think all his partners are pretty much agree, which gives a very lack of an ability to tune into how other people are feeling. So he's kind of highly intelligent, but he doesn't care so much about, or doesn't register so much about how other people feels. But I still think he's got empathy. He kind of attached to his children in a special kind of way, which we'll talk about later. So when Musk was about 17, he moved to Canada, but he wanted to go to the States, and he went to university in California, and he kind of got permission to stay in the States, and he started building some programs and that. He started getting considerable success, and at some point in the late 90s, he developed X, which was then changed to PayPal, and he was impossible to work with at PayPal, so the board kicked him out. But he got a nice multi-million-dollar bonus, and kind of left the company. So let's just check out his horoscope again. So what drives him to America? What drives him to, and what gives this amazing communication? If you've listened to Musk speak, he speaks in a very sporadic, staccato kind of way, and I think that's pretty much the Mercury square Uranus in the 3rd house. That gives this kind of impulsive nature, impulsive communication, and notice that Mercury is almost exactly square Chiron, which I reckon gives the autism, the Asperger's thing. But the significant thing is that Mercury is on the fixed star Sirius, and Sirius is kind of associated with success and honor and kind of power. And of course, the American sun is at 30, exactly where his ascendant is. It's on Sirius, 13 degrees Cancer. So he's got his Mercury on the ascendant, on Sirius, which may kind of indicate it didn't come from this solar system, but it certainly indicates there's some genius involved here. So that's like the difficult thing with Mercury, you could say, but also the genius representation. Sirius is actually most visible in the southern hemisphere. So he's born actually in the southern hemisphere, so that's where it's brightest. And it is kind of known as the dog star. And in Egypt, it used to rise, I think, when the Nile flooded or something like that. So there's it was a very significant star in the Egyptian period. So Mercury is like strong, right on the ascendant, right on Sirius, and it's sextile the moon, or the moon is sextile Mercury. So the moon in the second house, sextile Mercury in Cancer, they're in reception. So he's got this incredible ability to get rid of unnecessary things. When he's developing something, he's got a mantra which is called delete. Delete means, can we get rid of this? And he'd rather get rid of something and it fail, so that he knows that it must be there, than to accept that something must be there, without actually testing it. So it's enabled him to make things much, much cheaper. His rockets are cheaper by a factor of 10 to how much it cost NASA to develop rockets. The other thing about Mercury is that if you look at this green dotted line to Mars and the green dotted line to Pluto and Mars, that's a biquintile planet. Mars is biquintile Mercury, Mars is biquintile Pluto. Or you could say Mars is at the midpoint of Mercury, Pluto. But quintile patterns are really, really creative. The thing about quintiles is that they actually make things. They make products. There's often some tangible expression of the planets. So Mercury, Mars, and Pluto in the third, it's very kind of electric, really. It's very, batteries. It's like I think it's a symbol of its ability to create battery-powered vehicles, probably, amongst other things. So yeah, that's its Mercury. You might expect that Musk had some pretty unusual parents, and he did. His mother's parents, I believe, they used to fly on these biplanes, and perform. And then the mother, whose name is May, she was taken on these expeditions in planes looking for the lost city of the Kalahari Desert, right, by the Musk maternal grandparents. So, the mother herself was used to pretty weird stuff, and the father was also kind of problematic, really. The father, he had an emerald mine in Africa. Then he lost it, and then he had other kind of things. He drove around in a Rolls, and he lost that. So he's had extreme ups and downs, and he used to treat Musk, his children, really, really badly. Or he thought that by treating them very, very hard, that would kind of toughen them up. And that was the whole environment in South Africa at the time. The kids were really treated, they went to these camps where they, had to survive under extreme circumstances, even at a young age. And Musk himself wasn't like that. And so at school he was beaten up. He was beaten up badly. He ended up in hospital and things like that. So that Sun-Mars sesqui-square shows extreme violence that happened in his life. So he's married several times, maybe. I'm not sure how many times he's actually married, but he's had about 5 important partnerships, and the first one was with somebody called Justine, and that was quite an interesting story with her. They separated about 2008, and they had 3 children together. And I thought I'd just have a look at that situation with children, because as you can see in this horoscope, he's got Mars rules the fifth house in Scorpio, you could say, or Pluto if you like, but it's got Jupiter-Neptune conjunction, which is a kind of visionary pattern in the fifth house. And he has kind of visionary ideas about children. He thinks that one of the greatest threats to humanity is the falling childbirth rate, which is probably not exactly wrong, because the population explosion is soon going to be decreasing radically. So he thinks that it's a good idea to have lots of children, and he's had 11 of them. Or let's put it this way: he's had women to have 11 of them. Anyway, the first child, which he had with his first wife, Justine, died after 2 months of sudden infant death syndrome. She just died, and it was obviously incredibly upsetting for the family. But they they then had children by IVF, and they had twins. It's interesting because the twins, that one of them, I think, was called Vivian, changed her. She had transsexual, became a transsexual, in around late teens or something like that. She hates Musk. She doesn't want anything to do with Musk, and she doesn't talk to him. She's cut him off from his life. And that's not very nice for Musk. He's a Cancer. He's got the Sun in Cancer, rising sign in Cancer. Jupiter in the fifth. He loves his children, so it hurts him a lot that his second child, the twin, has rejected him. Anyway, after separating from his Justine, he's a rich man, and he probably had a lot of girlfriends. But he kind of settled down with somebody called Tallulah Riley, who's an English actress, and he actually really liked her. And they married, divorced, and remarried again, I think. And in that period also, I think he had a relationship with Amber Heard, who was Johnny Depp's ex, and that was really a nightmare, apparently. And then after that, later, around 2020 or 18 maybe, he went with Grimes, who was a performance artist called Claire Boucher. And they're still kind of together, 2023 now. They have a kind of relaxed relationship. And Grimes, actually, I've got a quote here which is really interesting. She says, referring to their relationship, she says, "There's no real word for it. I would probably refer to him as my boyfriend, but we're very fluid. We live in separate houses, we're best friends, we see each other all the time, we just have our own thing going on, and I don't expect other people to understand it." Now, this is the Mars-Venus trine. It's not a kind of comfortable Mars-Venus trine. Already with Mars in Aquarius in the 8th, you can expect some pretty explosive kind of relationships. And then Venus in Gemini in the 12th, you could expect quite a lot of different relationships. But one of the things about this 8th house Mars trine a 12th house Venus is that it's not like normal relationships. I've seen people who believe in free love with this, because it's kind of some idea that nobody owns anybody, which I guess can come with Venus in the 12th house, so. Anyway, that kind of expresses the way he seems to have gravitated, the kind of relationship he seems to have gravitated to now, sort of open, friendly, non-committed. Okay, so the thing is, when he sold PayPal, Musk had some million, 500 million, something like that, dollars to play around with, and he founded Tesla and SpaceX pretty much at the same time in 2002, and he put all his money into this. He could have lost everything because he likes risk. That can also be the Mars in Aquarius, sesquiquadrate the Sun. He kind of likes risk. And when he gets into something, he kind of he involves himself very deeply in both the management and the engineering. He's a great engineer. He's a great coder. He really tests. He gets the very, very best people to help him, and he tests them. So he starts with a rocket and the Roadster, the Tesla Roadster, and with the rocket, it's like really, really difficult to start a rocket company with a few £100 million. But he starts off by he has to launch the rockets out of the USA because of safety concerns. So he does it all on this remote Pacific island, which everyone has to travel to, and all the rocket pieces get shipped to the island, right? And and the first rocket explodes, the second rocket explodes, the third rocket explodes. It's 2008. He's absolutely broke. By this time, his Tesla Roadster has been kind of recognized as interesting, but it's expensive. It costs $100,000, and only rich people buy it. He knows he has to produce mass market an electric car. So by 2008, which is the time of the financial crash, right? He could have lost everything at this point. But the fourth launch of the rocket was a success, and then he got a contract with NASA, and they promised him several $billion. So that ended up being, saving him at the last moment. So that was in September 2008 that the Falcon 1 rocket launched, and at that point Jupiter was on Musk's descendant opposite his Mercury. So that's when he got money from NASA and a successful launch. So this thing with cars and rockets, amongst other things, you could say, like, what is it in his horoscope that shows, shows something totally unique out of 7 billion people on Earth? What is it in his horoscope? That's amazing. And I think the main indication is this Jupiter-Pluto sextile at 27 degrees, which it creates this quincunx to the MC. So that's called a finger of God. So the point of the arrow, which is here, is right on his MC, which is the launch, the rocket, the space, the ultimate goal, the career. So Jupiter-Pluto sextile is channeled like through this finger of God energy into career kind of success. And the thing about Jupiter-Pluto is it's like you can have exponential growth without Jupiter-Pluto, and you can have exponential loss. So what happens is there's a kind of success in explosive leaps and then enormous crashes. That's Pluto affecting Jupiter. But because it's kind of harmonious, it's an incremental and exponential growth of power and success. So I think, that's one of the things that does it. The reason that he's also a genius and can produce amazing products, I think, is this Mars, which is a biquintile. Pluto's a lot to do with batteries, storing energy in a small spot. And the third house, is like the car battery, cars. So I think Mars and Aquarius is like the electric cars, and Mercury is like, the genius that produces them. So yeah, I think that's like one thing shows the SpaceX, and the other thing shows the cars. That's my guess. So you'd think he'd have enough with all of that, wouldn't you? Because it's not just these two things he's running. He's got a huge battery producing complex. He's making the solar roofs, which are made of normal tiles. He's got the boring company, which hasn't been a great success yet. He's got Neuralink, right? anyone in their right mind would start relaxing, right? But no, in 2022 he acquired Twitter, and everybody advised him against that, right? But he likes doing the impossible, and he's got this thing about free speech, as he's not a left-wing guy. He doesn't want anyone interfering, with all his genius stuff. So he didn't like COVID because they tried to make him close down his factory. He fought that and won. And he doesn't like this woke stuff, So he's not intolerant, I don't think, because he's hurt by his transsexual child, who's rejected him, and so he doesn't reject kind of LGBT stuff or anything like that. He just believes in a lot of freedom, which is like probably necessary for what he does. So he's seeing Twitter as something that became more and more kind of left-wing woke, so to speak, and kind of affecting the freedom of speech. He thinks it's wrong. So that was part of the thing. He was always tweeting, but the other thing was he's got an idea with Twitter, because he sees what's happened in China with WeChat. WeChat is a kind of Twitter-like interface where people can do anything, and especially make payments. So they talk, they chat, then they buy stuff from each other, and it's a huge thing. And he would like Twitter to become like that. And in the process, he moved into Twitter, and he fired 80% of the employees, which wasn't very nice. And he brought in people from SpaceX and Tesla to kind of streamline the thing. He just thought though that he had to remove the rot, I think. Of course, that didn't help very much, because then the whole what everyone's frightened of with Twitter is that it's going to there's going to be misinformation and that kind of thing, creating a toxic environment. And as soon as he came in, a lot of that started happening, and that kind of put off advertisers. So Twitter immediately, pretty soon, after a few months, lost 50% of its revenue. So people are kind of betting against his success with Twitter. Not me. He's just like so driven, he's going to make it work. So you could say, well, what was the thing in his horoscope that drove him towards taking over Twitter? And he didn't really want to take it over. He made an offer rather impulsively, and then he tried to withdraw it, but he couldn't legally. So in the end, he took it. So if you look at his MC here, it's at 28 areas. Well, after so many years, about 50 years, it went to 18 Gemini. So now in 2023, it's right on Venus. That's pretty good, isn't it? Midheaven on Venus in Gemini, Twitter, Twitter community. It's like it would seem to be an inevitable thing. His MC comes on Venus, and then he's going to try and Mars. He's going to really start, doing something with Twitter. So that was one thing, but there's another thing as well, which I think I'm going to have to go back to show you on the graph. Mercury. So his Mercury is great Mercury, right? Really strong, and it goes through. It goes into. It's in Virgo, and then it goes over the moon. It's in Cancer, right? Then it goes over the moon in Virgo, right? So that's after in the late 2000s, about 2009. It hits the moon in Virgo for the first time, but then it goes retrograde, and at the time of the takeover of Twitter, it's the moon. Mercury retrograde comes on the moon in Virgo, So, the voice of the people. There's a certain amount of inevitability involved with this, taking over of Twitter. I think that he was definitely destined to do that. And then he renamed Twitter X, and he loves X. His first website or PayPal was called X, and then it's a weird name, isn't it? So they changed it to PayPal, which is kind of a little bit more comfortable. But now he's changed Twitter to X, and actually he's had a number of children recently. I think in 2020 he had the child who he named X. More than that, I think it was X. EU or something, but X with Grimes, and he loves X. He takes X with him everywhere, even to board meetings. Puts X on the table. Who's playing with rockets? In fact, apparently X learned to count, but only backwards, right? So it was like 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, because he watched so many rocket launches. So he had X with Grimes, and then he had 2 more children, I think, with Grimes, probably by IVF, twins again. And at the same time, simultaneously, he's got a female friend or business partner. Can't remember what. Yeah, her name's Siobhan Zilis. Yeah. Anyway, she had twins with him too, but not like physically. Well, they were by surrogate, so he got 4 children within about 2 years. So he's kind of improving. He's improving the, bringing the population up a little bit. So that's Elon Musk. Who's not going to be interested in what happens in the future? I think he'll turn Twitter around somehow. I think he'll make it into a successful economic platform. I think we should buy shares in Twitter, or X, in X. And I think he'll in the mid 2030s. I think there'll be expeditions to Mars. He thinks there's going to be rockets to Mars in about 2 or 3 years, like 2026, now maybe, because around that time Uranus trines Pluto. That's nice. Uranus in Gemini trine Pluto in Aquarius. That's pretty good for rocket travel. But I think the first manned mission to Mars will be around 2036, something like that. Mars has to be retrograde to be close to the Earth, so you can pretty much work out the date. That'll be when Musk's Mars retrograde is trine Uranus direct progressed, and then maybe Musk can live out his dream of dying on Mars. Sounds a little bit bare, but I think that's going to happen. So thanks for listening. If you want to get more podcasts, or videos, you can subscribe on YouTube. You can also go to www.astrowow.com, where they will see a lot of articles, including this one, and you can get a lot of nice free stuff, and order other stuff. So thanks for listening. See you next time.